Welcome to Tansson TV Plus. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Mom.
Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yep, thank you for joining with us again.
Yeah, we always love doing this. And Mom, how are you doing today?
I am doing just dandy, Brandon. How are you doing?
All is well here.
Sounds great. Are you excited to talk about our show for today, Brandon?
I sure am. Are you able to let us know what it is?
Yep, we are going to be talking about Webster.
Yes, so this series first began in 1983 and ran for 6 seasons, ending in 1989, first on ABC and then in syndication.
All right. And I'll tell you a little bit about our first premiere episode. A couple, Catherine and George, they are returning from their honeymoon, and then they find out that they actually have custody of George's godchild. Um, they don't seem to end overall in this first episode. They don't know if they should actually be the ones to actually raise him. And so they question, because they're newly married, they're kind of questioning this about themselves. And so this is Webster.
And Mom, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, Brandon.
And overall, what did you think about this first episode titled Another Ball Game?
You know, Brandon, I watched Webster when I was younger, and I will say I discovered as an adult, I didn't quite realize it when I watched it back then, that Webster is a deeper show than most people realize. And so I was watching this as an adult now. This episode was really deep. And so, of course, it has its funny parts, but overall, it really is a deep episode. And so yes, I did like the episode. I will say I did like the episode, but I had to watch it two or three times. You and I both watched it two or three times, just because there were some things we talked about, and we had to go back and kind of catch what they said in regards to Webster being sent to George and Catherine, specifically George, because he was the one who was the legal guardian. He would be the legal guardian of Webster.
Yeah, I mean, I know for our most recent watch that we are going for, because I was a bit confused of how exactly do you, I guess, end up with the shot. And I mean, George had no idea that Webster was coming by until I believe like minutes before he was dropped off.
Yeah, and actually, we didn't. It hit him, but he really didn't know Webster was being delivered that day. So, yeah, I was surprised that no one made a phone call. Now we are told that a friend on the show, a friend on the show, meaning George's friend, came over to see him, and he mentioned that George was a good guy in order to take on raising this child that George just kind of forgot about. And so, and he was running to tell Catherine when the doorbell rang. Of course, you and I talked about social services and things like that. And we know it's a TV show and they can't capture all of that, but they talked about so much on here that I'm surprised that they didn't include a social services person who kind of came over with Webster.
Yeah, I definitely found that overall interesting, but a little bit later in the episode, they do sort of explain it that I guess back when Webster's parents were still alive, George did sign actual legal documents to make all this. So I guess kudos to his parents, I guess, for being very forward thinking.
Yeah, and then they also made a comment that they did have to go to court. I think a couple weeks later, because when he was delivered, he did receive court documents at the same time. But it happened to be like a delivery service that delivered Webster, not as you would think, a social services person. So yes, they did their best to try to kind of incorporate all of that in there.
Yeah, outside of just the trying to figure out the logistics, I did want to reemphasize, of course, that we did enjoy the episode, although I feel that there were two very distinct plots going on for this first episode, the premiere.
Yeah, tell us about our plots, Brandon.
Yeah, so on one hand, you have George and Catherine, who are just gotten married and just met within a 2-week Greek cruise. and moved into this new place, which how they know where to drop Webster off if they just went into this place for the first time. But that thought aside, they're trying to figure out how to be a couple overall. And then you also have Webster, who is newly orphaned, trying to figure out his new life, to realize that the people in charge of his new life didn't know he was going to be in it.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very true. But I do agree with you. I did enjoy the episode. As you know, I try to rate the shows 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. But I will say I did give this one a 3. Um, I mean, it was funny. However, it, like I said, as a comedy, it was not a comedy for the first episode. But I do know that they do need to bring this in order to move forward with the show, to explain the show.
Yeah, and Mom, I'm gonna have to fully agree with you on that. And like I said, I do enjoy the show, and just to let the audience know, I was gonna say a couple years ago, but probably a decade ago, I was given the DVD set for the first 2 seasons, and I've seen the first 2 seasons. I don't think I've seen anything outside of that, but I did enjoy the show, and I liked watching it. I'm so glad that we had a chance to watch it here. But yeah, I mean, for a first episode, there's certainly a lot going on, and lots of intricate details that you sort of have to catch as it comes.
Yeah. And then we always ask the question of why did we choose this show? And I will say that I did make the selection for this show. We've talked about including this show, and we were having a hard time trying to figure out where to put it. And so, since we're going to have 80 Saturday for the month of June, we're like, well, let's just put it in here, because it could be any 80 show that we pick for the month of June for on Saturdays. And so we just decided that this would be a good place just to kind of add Webster in.
And yeah, and I'm so glad at the very least I said that we're able to discuss the show because we do enjoy the show.
Yes, we do. We do. And Brandon, will you end up watching the last few episodes? Or I should say the last couple seasons?
Oh yeah, I absolutely will. I don't remember where exactly we found it online, but I would definitely see some more episodes because it was fun watching those first 2 seasons when I got the DVDs, and so I'm excited to see a little bit more as to what the show has to offer.
Yep, actually, same here, Brandon. And I don't mind rewatching them again.
Yeah, and Mom, I did have a little bit of information about the behind the scenes of getting the show in.
Oh, tell us about it. Let us know the backstory, Brandon.
Yeah, so it's actually quite interesting. So originally the show had nothing to do with the character of Webster.
Oh, then was it just about George and Catherine?
Yeah, so it was going to be a show about newlyweds George and Catherine, and the show was going to be titled Another Ball Game.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it was about a former football player who found love and I guess their newlywed life, and so that's what the plan originally was going to be. But then I guess ABC had found Emmanuel Lewis that plays Webster and decided he needs a show, and they decided to merge the two concepts together. And over time, we ended up with what is now Webster, but apparently the cast was not told the show was going to be called Webster.
Oh wow, wow. Uh, well, I will say this one thing I do like about the show that I think is funny is Catherine. Catherine cooking made me laugh at the end of this episode.
Absolutely, and I thought it was so funny too because I don't know, especially how Webster says that she's ruining breakfast because from the soggy waffles to the spouting up coffee, everything I thought was just so hilarious. And I like that you didn't even have to have commentary for that. That you could just see her going into the works. Actually, that whole breakfast thing makes me think about first episode. Well, not first episode, second episode we watched just a couple weeks ago of Green Acres.
Yeah, it is. That's very true. I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. All right, Brandon, did you have connections for this show?
So yes, we do have one connection that I know of.
Oh, what is that?
So that's with the director's Joel Zwick.
And what did he do?
Yeah, so Joel Zwick, who directed quite a bit of Webster, he also directed the first episodes that we discussed of Perfect Strangers, Full House, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, and Family Matters.
Wow. Well, and when I looked on his page, he has directed quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely, and he's directed even outside of episodes that we've discussed, numerous different shows that we have watched, and so it's great whenever we're able to make these connections. And I think what was interesting about this one is he directed this first episode before all of those other ones we had discussed.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's good to know. Good to know. I say, anything else you want to talk about with Webster, Brandon?
No, I mean, like I said, I'm glad that we're finally able to speak about the show. Oh, and what are your thoughts about the theme song, Mom?
Oh, I absolutely love the theme song for Webster. Really, really do. We both sat down and were shocked through at the first episode theme song because it was much slower than the other variations of the song. And so we watched it a couple times, or listened to it a couple times. But yes, I absolutely love the theme song to Webster.
Yeah, I definitely do. And yeah, and I did want to make one small note now that I'm thinking about it. So of course we see Catherine's assistant Jerry within this episode, who stuck around on and off for the first few seasons of the series.
Uh huh. Yes. Yeah, we do. We do have him as a character.
But one person that we see in this episode that does not stick around is George's best friend, Peanut Butter.
Yeah, you're right, Brandon. He didn't, although he played a pertinent part for adding in the one line we needed. But yes, he does not stick around. But Jerry does stick around, and I do like Jerry as a character.
Oh yeah, I certainly do love Jerry as a character, and I think even though he is Catherine's friend, I like him as a foil against George because I think their dynamics are kind of hilarious.
Yes, it is. It really is. All right. Anything else, Brandon?
Well, the reason I mentioned that is because the character of Peanut Butter apparently was actually supposed to be an integral part of the series before they added in the character of Webster.
Oh, okay. That part I didn't know. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know much about it, but I guess he was a part of the original cast that was sort of put together. But when they decided to make the show about um, Webster, or rather Webster being a part of this newly created family, the show was then going to be called "Then Came You," which I thought is very appropriate. It works with the theme song.
Uh huh.
Then I guess they had to shift the dynamic of the show, and then, well, now it's called Webster, and uh, trying to figure out that dynamic is that, well, there's not really enough room for yet another character to focus on.
Okay. Well, I mean, that does make a lot of sense. It does, especially if this was supposed to be one of the main characters. Because could Jerry, Jerry is kind of a side character on this show, and so if Peanut Butter was supposed to be a main character, it would make sense that they would have to minimize his character.
Yeah, and we oftentimes see in these series premieres, and especially in pilots, that these are like those changes that you find with between episode ones and episode twos, that uh, trying to figure out what you don't need in a show.
Yeah, we do. I say anything else, Brandon?
No, that is it for me.
All right. Well, we thank everybody for watching today.
Yeah, we definitely do.
All right, and we'll see you next time.
Have a wonderful day.
All right, bye bye, everybody.